Have you ever said to yourself, what if I can't do it? Or high levels of embarrassment for fear of failure? Okay, of course I'm talking about the amazing book Inventing Ourselves by Sarah-Jane Blakemore, The Development of the Teenage Brain. So this book won the British Psychology Society Prize, and it talks about how the teenage brain develops. And this is really important for people who work with teenagers, have teenagers, are teenagers, or whoever has been a teenager. Let's use the hand model of the brain to summarize what the book says. Remember, the wrist is the brainstem, and that involves bodily functions. Then the hippocampus and the amygdala, and that's what I'm going to talk about today. That's emotion and memory. And then the prefrontal cortex is able to regulate and think regionally. Within a teenage brain, we're in this kind of stage because the prefrontal cortex cannot regulate emotion. So what I'm going to talk about today is the fact that the hippocampus, the amygdala, is very well matured within a teenager before the prefrontal cortex can regulate. That explains why high levels of emotion and high levels of ability to learn. Let's break this down. Okay, so the first bit is the hippocampus. The hippocampus is involved in learning and memory. So in the teenage brain, this is highly neuroplastic. What does that mean? It means that teenagers are able to learn a phenomenal amount of information, and that's really important for their development. You can see evolutionarily why that's important. However, it is incredibly sensitive to stress. That explains why lots of teenagers, when they feel high levels of stress, their learning just shuts down. The next bit is the amygdala. Now, the amygdala is involved in emotion control, so it's scanning for danger. Again, remember what we said, within the teenage brain, the amygdala is highly sensitive, and that explains why they have extreme emotions that they're not able to regulate because the prefrontal cortex cannot wrap around. So what this book does, it talks about what we talked about before, that top down. It gives you information about how the teenage brain develops, how your brain has developed, and it actually gives you choice, therefore, in terms of how you face challenges, how your brain changes, and it gives you choices in that moment when you feel stressed. The invention of ourselves, or I would also put the reinvention of ourselves. Tell me what you think.